Alright guys, so in this video I'm going to show you how we do the power troweling and the sawing on this slab. Now just real quickly, I just wanted to briefly show you how we got this slab poured. It's a 48 by 48 foot garage slab, 6 inches thick. And you know, in the pouring video, which is part 1 of this series, I explained to you our techniques and why we pour slabs a certain way. You know, basically we got 5 trucks here. Why did we do truck 1 here, 2 here, 3 here, 4 and 5 in this specific, you know, manner? And we have a certain method for pouring slabs that's worked really good for us. That doesn't just take into consideration the pouring, but also the finishing, the power troweling also. Now, if you're a new subscriber, you want to please consider subscribing. You'll get entered into a free drawing for some of the gear that we wear, the sweatshirts, the t-shirts, hats and stuff that we have. All you got to do is put new sub down in the comments, and I'll know you're a new subscriber, and I'll enter you into a drawing for that. And I do one a week. So we come out with a couple videos a week about concrete stuff. So if you like that kind of stuff, like I said, please consider subscribing to the channel. Now this was the concrete pour. You know, this took us, you know, maybe a little over an hour to get the concrete poured out. And then I explained, you know, why the concrete sets up the way it does. This is late in the fall in Maine, so it's a little chilly in the morning, but then the sun comes up and things warm up pretty good. So this was about an hour after the pour, and you can see Luke's stepping on the concrete. He's not really sinking in much, just maybe a 1/16 of an inch, which is really perfect timing for this time of year. Plus we're kind of in the shade still. The sun doesn't get up very high, so it's fighting its way through the trees. And that's going to move as the sun moves. The parts of the slab that are in the sun will move. Now the parts in the sun will be a lot warmer than the parts in the shade, so them generally set up quicker. Now Luke right here is actually on truck number 3. So truck number 3 is setting up pretty good, actually a little bit faster than truck 1 and truck 2. And that's kind of why we pour the concrete slab the way we do it, with the trucks abutting each other. As you run out of concrete with one truck, let's say truck 1, you know, you don't want to just randomly go pour truck 2 way over in the other corner so it doesn't abut to truck 1. You got to have a method so you can get the power trowel, you know, from each load. In most cases, the slab will set up the way you pour it with each truck. When you have multiple trucks like this, you know, this was 5 trucks. You could have a slab with 10 trucks, 20 trucks, but you got to have a plan of attack on how you're going to pour it, and you got to take into consideration how you're going to finish it with these power trowels, because you don't want to put 5 different power trowels on the floor, because this truck's setting up over here, but then you can't get to the part that's setting up way over on the other side because you got the wet concrete in the middle. You got to be able to go from one load to the next to the next. And that's what makes it easy. That's why, you know, in most cases, one guy can do most of the power troweling on a slab this size. With a power trowel this size, that's a 3 foot 36 inch MBW power trowel. And for the most part, Luke's going to be able to finish the whole thing. Right at the very end, you'll see we dropped another trowel on because the sun started hitting it quite a bit, and just to make things a little easier, a little bit faster, we dropped a second one on it. Just to smooth things out and get it done, you know, a little bit quicker without him having to work too hard with just one power trowel. Now, as Luke's doing the power troweling, you know, he's going from load to load, right? Basically feeling what the concrete feels like under his feet is kind of determining where he's going with the power trowel next, on what truck he's going to hit next. And as he's doing that, Luke and Darren and I are going around, you know, finishing all the edges. We got anchor bolts in around the edges. You can see those bolts sticking up, so we got a trowel around those, make sure it's nice and smooth around those. And then we got 3 garage doors on the front of this that we've already tapered. If you want to see how we taper those garage doors, you know, you can join the Concrete Underground. You could also join the Concrete Underground if you want to learn how to power trowel. Like, I break it down in there step by step how to power trowel. You know, the timing of it, the certain way that we run a power trowel across the slab, the pattern, why we do it this way. That's all in the Concrete Underground if you want to learn how to finish concrete, or even pour concrete, actually. Plus all kinds of other stuff is in there. So the link for that is in the description below. We're fighting leaves here today. It's late in the fall in Maine. The leaves are falling off the trees. It's a little bit windy, so they're kind of like just falling all randomly over the slab as the wind picks up and blows them. And then we got a couple leaf blowers on hand that we'll use to just kind of blow them out of the way. We don't like to power trowel them into the slab surface. That kind of makes a mess as the slab sets up. Well, we pick them up as we go, or we'll just leaf blower them off to try to get them out of Luke's way. And Darren, he can step right out there. The slab's set up enough now so you can walk on it pretty good. We just try not to step on the stuff that Luke just hit, so he doesn't have to go right back over it. So we want to come in from behind where he's going to be hitting with the power trowel if we're going to pick him up by hand. That's me way over there on the right. That was me there bending over, troweling those edges in front of those garage doors. We got a finish we're going to put on those too. That's going to be coming right up here soon in the video. I'll show you just how we finish off the garage door tapers. That's worked really well for us. It's just a way to finish the concrete. There's multiple different ways to do them. We like the taper like this. I don't like the step down. Some guys will have like 1.5 inch step down for the garage doors to sit into. That way water doesn't get up under the door onto the garage slab. But then that creates like a little trip edge. And, I don't want a trip edge in a garage door myself, especially if anybody's going to be walking in and out and maybe holding something in their hands and it's dark, it's late at night or whatever, you're going to trip over that. Or if you got to wheel something in there, now you got to wheel it up over an edge. We've always used the taper like this, and that taper goes in beyond the garage door 1 inch or 2. So the garage door actually sets on the taper, and I've never ever had problems with water getting up under a garage door. Doing this for 48 years, doing it this way. So this method works good too. This is the one we like. Now the video is kind of long. I left it that way on purpose so you can get a pretty good feeling of just how long it takes to go over a slab like this, the speed, the rate at which Luke's going, how fast he's moving the power trowel back and forth. You can see most of the slab is still in the shade from the trees, and there's that one corner over there where I am, way over there on the right. That's actually truck number 4, and that's gonna, if that stayed that way, that would finish the quickest over there in that corner, just because of that amount of sun that's on it. Now we're using what we call combo blades on the power trowel. We don't use pans. We have used what we call float blades and finish blades. Those are 2 different types of blades in the past, and I still have power trowels set up with those. The float blade is something that clips on over a finish blade. The finish blade is kind of like using a steel trowel, like a hand steel trowel. You put the float blades on over them first, and you hit the slab once like Luke's doing now, and then you pop them float blades off. They just clip on. You pop them off, then you change over to the finish blades, and you can finish concrete that way. Or you could use combo blades like we're doing now, which does a combination of the floating and the finishing. And you just kind of slowly crank them a little higher as you go. Or you could use a pan. We've used pans before. We've tried them. For the size of the slabs that we do, we found that we don't need to use a pan. We've been finishing concrete our whole lives. Luke's been doing it for 30 years. Darren, way over there on the left, he's been doing it over 30. And I've been doing it, going on 45, 46 years, and never using pans. You don't need to use pans. You can just finish them just the way we are right here if you want. Or if you want to go ahead and use a pan, you go ahead. You can see he's following a pattern, and there's a reason for that, and I explain that in the training videos. There's a specific reason for that. If you're a concrete finisher, and you're not following a pattern, then somebody's taught you wrong, and there's a very good reason for that. If you're just randomly going over the slab, then you're not getting that slab finished or flattened as good as you could. Not saying you're not going to get it smooth, but you're not going to get it as flat as you can. All right, so Luke hit the slab, got off it for a little bit, let it set up some more. Now he's jumping back on it. You know, he's basically looking at where the sun's hitting, where the shade's hitting, and he knows the sun part's going to set up twice as fast as the shade. And he's kind of hitting in front of those garage doors. Those garage door openings have been in the sun for quite a while, and they're ready to put the final finish on. So he's hitting in front of them real quick so he doesn't spit any little pieces of, sometimes them blades will spit out some concrete, what we call like concrete balls underneath them. Yeah, we don't want to get any of those on the finished part of the door taper after we get the final finish on them. So he's hitting that, and then he's going to get out of the way and keep moving the other way on the slab. I'm putting the final trowel, so I'm buzzing it with a steel trowel. Darren's going to do the same thing. And then we have a broom. You can see the little yellow broom sitting on top of the slab right there with a little edger. We like putting a broom finish on the outdoor edges. It just gets them finished off. And then we always edge that front to help strengthen, you know, the very front edge of the slab where maybe, you know, an asphalt driveway or a gravel driveway or even a concrete driveway might meet. So we always round that edge to help strengthen it so it's not a sharp edge. And we'll just put the finished edger on it. You don't need to put the finished edger on it once you have it rounded really good. You could just leave it broomed. Just that kind of basically is whatever you feel like looks good to you. This is the way we've done it, and it's always worked good for us. We're looking for a specific firmness or dryness of the surface before we run that broom over it. We don't want to do it when it's too wet, then it doesn't look good. And we don't like wait until the very end, obviously. Then the concrete's going to be way too hard. You won't even leave any broom marks on it. But we just put a little taper on it, I don't know, for traction, I guess, for finishability. You could leave it smooth. You could just hand trowel it too and leave it smooth if you wanted to. Everything we do, like with this finishing, whether we do it by hand or with a power trowel, you know, it's all done based on the experience we've had over the years, what's worked best for us. Finishing off these garage doors, this is what we feel has worked best for us, and what we like to do is the finished product, so to speak. Now Luke's way back up there on truck number 1, which is basically totally in the shade now. And trucks number 4 and 5 are just about all in the sun now. About half the slab's in the sun, half's in the shade, and it's like finishing 2 different slabs almost. There was about, well, where Darren's troweling right now, that's in between the garage doors, so about 4 feet in between the doors. There's a couple ankle bolts in there. The homeowner's going to build this garage too, all out of rough lumber. He's got a bunch of that lumber sitting off to the side. I don't know if I got a shot of that in any of the videos or not. Probably the pouring video I did. But that's all been sitting off to the side for quite a while. And the forms he used too was all rough cut lumber. So remember, if you want to see how we poured the slab, you know, I'll have a link for that. Actually, that'll pop up at the end of this video in the last 20 seconds, along with another video that I think you might like to watch. So you'll get to see how we poured it, and I explain kind of our method for doing it and the reasons why we do things a certain way and what's always worked good for us. And then I just wanted to give you an idea. See how long he kind of, I call it long, but see how long he's been up there, you know. Not only is he just running over the surface, but as he's running over the surface with the power trowel, he's watching, he's looking at the surface under the blades, making sure the blades are working it up, I guess, from the previous hit, or smoothing it out from the previous hit completely. There's a certain what thing he's looking for in the finish of the concrete every time he goes over it. And that's how you get the nice smooth, what we call like glass burnt out finish, without rough marks or rough areas in the concrete. Hey, after Darren brooms that, you can see that that looks like nice. That's all finished off now, so that's done. And then I'm going to come behind him with the edger and just put a finished edge on it, just because that's what we like to do. And now we can move on from those edges and just, we've already probably hand troweled all the other edges around the garage slab a couple times, but we just like to keep going around it until they're rock hard and done and smooth. That way the edges look just as smooth and just as nice as the rest of the slab does where the power trowels hit. And that does make a difference in looks, I think. First impression, you know, when someone walks up on this slab and they look at the edges versus where the power trowel hit, and if the edges don't look good, you can really notice. And with us, they all look the same. Luke's still on that first truck, just taking his time, making sure everything's looking good. In no real hurry, because he knows how long it's going to take him to hit the whole slab, and he knows that based on, you know, going in front of these garage doors, the couple passes that he did, he knows how that concrete felt, so he knows how long he can let it sit in the sun before he needs to get back to it. He knows all that stuff just by, number one, by walking on it, and then obviously hitting it with the power trowel, he can tell. If he thought that the part in the sun needed to be hit, he would leave that part up in the shade, come right down and hit all this stuff in the sun, and then work his way back to the shade. There's some leaves on there we got to get blown off. So he feels like if he's stepping off like that, then he feels like he's got to let it sit for a bit. So he let it sit for a bit, probably 20 minutes, and now he's right back on it, back on truck number one. I'm going to let you just listen here for a while, and if you've got any questions, just leave them down in the comments. I'll definitely answer them down in the comments after you've watched the video. And don't forget to subscribe. If you subscribe and then say new sub in the comments, you'll be entered into a drawing to win, you know, a sweatshirt, a t-shirt, a hat, some gear that we have. Base concrete gear with the straight out of concrete on the back of it.
sun's going. Little corner, I think it's just time right out.
All right, so a lot of the slab came into the sun right at the end, so we just stuck a second power trowel down there just to get it burnt out, looking really nice. And I just wanted to show you like how we saw cut a slab. I talk a little bit about saw cut joints in the pouring video, the reason for them, you know, why we space them the way we do, and all that. That's all covered in the pouring video. But I just wanted to show you we're using early, what we call an early or a green cutting concrete saw. We can saw right after we get done power troweling. Doesn't really mess up the surface of the slab with the diamond blades that we use, and you know, there's a little bit of a technique to it, but these saws are made specifically for this reason right here, and this is why, or how you can really control shrinkage cracks in your slabs is by cutting them this early, and you're almost really making them crack in the saw joint. I'm just going to let you watch Darren do this. We put, where we cross the joints, because the concrete's so green, we put a stiff little piece of cardboard right in there, so the cardboard acts kind of as support when you're cross cutting you know, through another joint. And you know, Luke's brooming the dust off, and then we'll take a leaf blower to it at the end.
give it a